when the mics are hot and the workday ends. Carla, Robin, Jake, your audio friends. Laughs and stories, real talk that rocks. It's Reflecting Media Off The Clock.
That's always there.
It was like we didn't decide who's going to start.
Who's the lead? I think Scarlett.
Hello. Welcome to Reflective Media Productions' first podcast. And so we don't really know what we're doing, but this is fun. It makes it real. And I am Carla McDougall, Reflective Media Productions CEO.
And I'm Robin Murray, and I'm the content director and the writer.
And I'm Jake Allen. I'm the executive director and a bunch of other stuff.
For sure. The
Camera,
face behind
operator,
a lot
editor.
of things.
All of us are a bunch of other stuff, but
We've been together how long now?
15 years.
15.
Say it together.
15 years. Can you believe that?
I actually, it just triggered in me. I had saved a picture I came across a couple weeks ago, and I was looking through old stuff, and I wanted to share it with y'all real quick.
Oh, this will be
I
fun.
just thought this was the
Yeah.
coolest picture from when we were making We Were Stronger out there in Austin,
Yeah.
Texas, in the heat, filming that. It's the flashback scene in We Are Stronger, and I thought that was such a cool, sweet picture.
Oh, I haven't
Hannah
seen
probably
it in
took
a
that.
long time.
Yeah.
There's another picture of us similar to that, Robin, in Breaking Stronghold, when we were filming season 1 of Breaking Strongholds
Okay.
out at that ranch. So the horse ranch.
Yeah. And I have a good picture of us when we were traveling with We Are Stronger in the airports and in Colorado, and
So fun. So
Yeah, we were bouncing all over the place for We Are Stronger.
Mhm.
yeah. It's so fun.
Oh, and Breaking Strongholds. You're talking about the jet scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just being at the airport to go on an airplane ourselves because we were promoting We Are Stronger
Oh, okay.
back then. So
I will never forget 15 years ago when I had written the Bible study, Reflecting Him. And I woke up and I thought, oh, how awesome would it be if we had a kind of a mini series that went with it? I wonder if Robin would write that for us. And so I called her up I think it was like right after that, and said, hey, what would you think about writing a mini series to go with the Bible study that had those lessons embedded in the storyline? And do you remember what you said?
I don't remember what I said. I trying to remember. I mean, I remember doing it. I remember where I was and all of that. Oh, you know what? I do. I think I remember what I said. I've always wanted.
Yes.
At first, I used to say, I have another friend who's always saying, "What are your hopes and dreams?" I feel like the Lord wants to give us our hopes and dreams, And I remember thinking and saying to her, I would like to write a book that could be made into a movie or something. And then when you asked me to do that, I said, oh, well, I can skip writing the book. You're writing the book. I get to write the movie, so something like that. But it was.
And you did. You wrote it in 7 days. You took that Bible study and wrote it. And then we had a movie script, and we're like, what are we going to do?
We did.
Oh,
Were y'all
He likes to have a.
Were y'all thinking of it as a movie?
No, you're the one that made it more of a movie. Actually, I did not realize in the beginning I was going to be actually writing a movie because it started out as what we had been doing, and that's me writing skits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it became very clear that nobody is going to try to learn 10 separate 15-minute skits, you know.
Yeah.
So we thought maybe we could pull together a drama group to do it and get somebody to just film it like in a black box theater. And when we tried to come up with who could do something like that, we thought, well, what about that kid that works for the church that's always videoing the youth? And that would be Jake Allen, who was at the time, 21 years old or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just about.
And then we went in to talk to Jake Allen, and he said, well, I've been taking some classes on lighting and stuff. And if you have a location, we could film it like a movie. And so that's when it was like, oh, wow, I'll get to,
I still remember, I believe, because I had kind of moved around the church in different capacities. And I think at that point I was upstairs, and y'all had come upstairs. And
We
it was so fun.
did, yeah.
Yeah, that was.
And he
Yeah,
was like,
and
we're going to make a movie. And so at that point, we had some actresses that had worked with us
For the
on some of our
skits, yeah.
skits.
Uh-huh.
And so she used to write skits that went with the speaking topics and the retreats that I had written, that I would go to these churches. And those skits were just like drawing. People wanted to see what was going to happen next. And so we had some pretty good actresses that we brought in. And we went to them, we said, hey, would you like to be part of a movie? And they were like, okay. And so it just slowly but surely we got different ones to be part of that. And I believe that was all done in 3 months. Isn't that right? Yeah.
it was pretty quick. Yeah, it was. I mean, thinking back now, like that was shockingly fast.
It was one hot summer.
It was hot. And I will never forget that this is so funny. So this Bible study was 10 weeks. And Faith Bible Church allowed me to kind of be the leader for the Bible study. And so I would come in on stage and talk to the whole group, and then they'd break up and go into small groups. So in that large setting, and I think there were maybe 200 women in there or something like that. I would be waiting. I'll never forget. I would be waiting at the door for Jake to run up. And this is right before Bible study would start. Jake would run up, hand me the DVD. I would run over to the sound booth, hand it to the guy. He would stick the DVD in, and I will have never seen it before until that moment.
Yeah, gosh, we had no idea what what we were doing or what was.
That was crazy. That was
So funny. But
crazy.
Jake, you were never too late. You were always on time.
You got it there.
There was not one of those 10 weeks that we did not have a DVD that worked and that played the part. So it was
It was a good little education, inadvertent education on a lot of this stuff of hitting deadlines with that. And
So people
Oh.
that may not know how that very first project was, which I don't even know if you can find that anywhere, but it started out as, just like they're describing, little 15-minute segments of a bigger story. And each little 15-minute segment went with one of the weeks of the study. And then at the end, people enjoyed the movie so much that Jake edited it together so people could just buy the movie. And when they were at her retreats and things. And that's Celeste's. That was his cabin.
and that plays the authentic cabin.
Yeah.
we've used that cabin so much. We're about to use that cabin on Thursday for another shoot.
Yeah. So that's he owned that, and now his daughter owns that. He is he was married to my mom for 25 years, and a special man who loved to just keep things like that up. And so we asked him to be Uncle James in that.
He did such a good job too.
And he was great. He was great. Yeah. He has now since passed away after 5 years of Alzheimer's, and Mom cared for him till the very end. But in 2019 he passed away. But
I have tears in
lives
my
on.
eyes watching this, you guys. I
Mhm.
haven't watched it in
Lives
so
on film. Yeah, Jake did some beautiful work.
Wow.
Look at that
It really holds up pretty well.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
surprised.
And I don't know, can people even access this anymore? There's Jamie. Can you believe Jamie Higgs, who ended up in the next project,
Yeah.
First of, she was the main lead
She's
woman.
good. She's a good actress.
She's great. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Anything is in focus in this thing because I'm just truly eyeballing it. I have no
But
like
it's beautifully done. I mean, look at his hands and love it.
And we only had one camera at this point, right? Am I
this was
correct?
this camera. This is Jake area, but this camera is really the reason why I even kind of had the idea to do something like this, because this was the
Mhm.
first sub $1,000 camera that could do a cinematic looking sort of thing. So it could actually have depth of field, which is the difference in focus planes and all that kind of stuff. And so that's why it looks cinematic. And it was like that camera at the time had just come out, and it was just affordable enough for normal people to get, a college student or whatever to get. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool to kind of see reflective media. We've always leveraged technology from the very beginning, hopefully to glorify the Lord and to further his kingdom. And we're still doing that today in so many different ways. But it's fun to think like it was just kind of the Lord put together the right people, the right technology, the right inspiration to bring all this.
And the song that we used, my sister wrote, right?
Oh yeah.
My sister wrote that a few years before, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it went and so even the story of how we got the music, and then the CD that she ended up creating from that it was amazing.
This first sequence, not to pat ourselves on the back, but this first sequence really holds up.
It
It really does.
And the thing, but just like Jake's saying, this was never intended to be a filmmaking.
Mhm.
Originally God intended, he knew what he was doing, but originally it was truly just how do we best get this message out, and how do we best support,
Yeah.
the Bible study that Carla's written.
Mhm.
And then Jake took it up several notches with his, just
Yeah.
I guess we would say those little fledgling talent that he had been sort of self-taught, has always been
Mhm.
self-taught, and he's ended up, God's just really blessed it, anointed it, I guess you could say. I mean, it's become something so beyond anything we ever originally thought it would be. And we like to say, and just make very clear that, we're first just a ministry, and secondarily, we make films.
I want to show you my favorite scene of this film.
This is so fun.
It's coming
I'm
here.
I'm having a
This is my favorite scene.
simple.
Yeah. Super low on actor. That's me, y'all. You can't even recognize me, but that's before my hair, was great.
You are a great actress.
Robin is a very good
You're a
actress.
good actress.
Well, anyway, again, not anything any of us trained for, writing, acting, any of it, but it's God's.
Well, you've had a lot of experience directing kids, UIT and all that kind of stuff, but you just have a natural ability to kind of know what you want to get out of a performance.
Maybe so.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We're
I've
talking
got to
about,
watch this again.
apparently,
That's
let's
fun.
see, her kid was the boy, and my kid was the girl, and that we're having a little romance there, and we were talking about our kids.
Was that in that one? That was in First Love, right? Or am I hallucinating?
No, I think that was in that one, that I was Ashley's mom. And she was Ryan's mom. Or
Oh, you're talking about in the script. Okay.
yeah, and it's talking about the kids.
I was like, wait a minute.
That's, yes.
The
It was
next-
two moms talking about our kids. That's what
The next film, your actual son was in the film. So.
my actual son was in that. And then my actual son is in the most recent thing.
That's right.
That's right.
Actual son.
Different son. They're both great actors.
Hey,
That is so fun going down memory lane.
it is.
And I think it gives a heart of really where we started to those that are out there watching,
Mhm.
listening. And because when we did that, we didn't go, okay, now we're gonna create this production company, and it was just this
No.
little chord of three of us coming together. And then after that was over, I think we met again and we thought, what if we did a feature film?
Yeah, I would tell
And
Jake about tell about that because I feel like it was Jake that said, Carla, if you can gather this up, I'd like to try to actually create a feature film. Am I remembering that right, Jake?
Yeah, it was kind of again, it was just all these pieces that the Lord put together at the right time. And so I was in my early 20s and I was working actually as the communication director for a church in the Woodlands, Texas. And I loved that. And it taught me so much. It taught me a ton with just graphic design and all that, just out of necessity, doing what I needed to do there. And so over our time, right when we were connecting, I was getting more into video and cinematography, just inadvertently. Like you said, Robin, largely self-taught. I had taken, I think, 3 classes at Lone Star, which is a community college, a local community college, and one of those classes was very helpful, and that put me in contact with the teacher there. He was the one who was talking to us about kind of these changes in technology. And I had already been doing photography stuff for the youth ministry and a little bit for the church. And so I had some familiarity with that, but the introduction in from photography cameras, introducing video into that platform really is what has enabled us to do what we do still today. And I still use those style cameras. And so anyway, yeah, it was just kind of the right moment as the Lord weaves all of our lives together. And it was I had started my own little independent graphic design video business, and I had really loved doing it's a strange kind of passion to have because it's such a hard thing to do, and it is such a challenge. And that production was such a challenge because we were filming that. I was still working full time at the church and editing at night and all that kind of stuff, and making sure we had those done on time and all that kind of stuff. And again, we had zero experience, but I'm so glad we've gotten to learn with each project as we've gone along. And I just so value long-term working relationships with people that I love and I trust, and we have the same heart. And that started back then, which was really fun. But yeah, I think Carla, I don't know which came first, but you were working on another series and kind of toying around with ideas. And I was kind of toying around with ideas of what we could do. And that's when I remember we met at Eden Cafe, which Ulysses Laramendi, who would star in that film, and he went to the same church. We already had a wonderful relationship with him, but he had done a lot of skits at the church. And so we thought, again, we were all in the same little tight-knit church community. And so we were just kind of drawing from the people around us and all that. And so, yeah, I remember we had a lunch there, and I was thinking, well, we kind of inadvertently made a movie together with, when you put these episodes together, they are over an hour runtime. Like, what if we tried to kind of make a movie? Because I don't think any of us were really thinking along the lines of a movie during that process per se. These were all mini episodes that were going along with it. And so it was really only after the fact that we were like, oh, you kind of put this together and people want to watch it. And that was one of the cool things. I love hearing you talk about Carla, with the impact to the study and the retention of people over
Oh yeah.
a long period of time. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. So, anyone who's done a group Bible study, there is one thing that tends to be the case, not always, but tends to be kind of an average case. And that is, if it's 10 weeks, at about 5 weeks, they kind of fall off. So you end up with about half maybe of what you started with.
Mhm.
And so I've done Bible study quite a few years. And I thought, oh, with this Bible study, I'm going to shorten it at about the 5th, 6th week so that it gets shorter and shorter. So it's easier for them to feel accomplished and then move forward with it.
Mhm.
And then we added the movie with it, or the series, like I want to say,
Mhm.
to each one of the lessons. And I would show those. So I'll never forget, I was at Woods Edge and leading the Bible study for that 10 weeks. We started with maybe 180 women, and it continued to grow, so that
Hmm.
at the end of it, we had over 250 at that
That's incredible.
that very last Bible study. And I was like, this is incredible. What inspired you to continue, going besides obviously God's word? But they said, we want to see what's going to happen to Janet. So I was like,
Funny.
oh, what?
Yeah.
The visuals and those learning tools, God began, and I have dyslexia.
Oops. We lost that connection there.
Mhm.
Carla lives in the mountains, and so they have a fragile
From those
connection.
visuals.
We're back.
Mhm.
Yeah. She's
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
But there's others out there that
It's
need.
in the mountains
that
and it's
can-
very cold, so she freezes sometimes.
Yeah, we do. That's funny. Anyway, so yeah, it was just, God used it to teach all three of us the impact that media has.
It was really the thesis statement for the ministry in a lot of ways.
It
That
was.
storytelling, that parables, that illustrate God's deepest truths in a story in an accessible way, in a non-confrontational way, to be able to see these truths
Yeah.
played out in people's lives in a way that you get to see and you get to witness that impact, not directly. So that's kind of how it started, was this slow development. And that was so we set out to make First Love, and it was a modern day retelling of the life of Peter. And that
Can I
was,
tell a cool story with that one?
no, please do.
Because we didn't have a name. We had a working title. I have no idea what that working title was. And I will never forget waking up one Sunday morning and we praying about what the title needed to be. And so I was doing my hair. I was blow drying my hair. I'll never forget. And all of a sudden, this name pops in, First Love. And I was like, oh, that would be phenomenal, because we were talking about going back to your first love, which is Jesus and this and that. And so I just could not wait to share that with you. Get to church that morning, and there was a man I'd never heard of leading worship named John Sherrill.
Hmm.
And he's up there, and he is at the very end, he goes, I'm going to play you guys a song that I wrote. And it's called First Love.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I remember that.
And
He's telling me.
I'm I think I was kind of on the back row for some reason. I about jumped across and ran across the top of the heads to get to that stage, because I was like, I've got to meet this man. So afterwards, I went and introduced myself to him, and I said, is there a way I could have a conversation with you? Because the Lord is doing something here. So I think the next week I either met with him or had a conversation on the phone and said, would there be a way you will, allow us to use this song, First Love, with you singing it?
Hmm.
And he was like, absolutely, whatever I need to do. And then and vice versa. Maybe I talked to y'all first, and then but it became the title song, the title of the movie, and John became instrumental in that. So
That's a great
just
song.
Such a neat
That was cool.
God
I'd forgotten
moment.
about that connection with John. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a neat moment.
Yeah. And we really had inadvertently, again, it's just so funny how not planned and not strategic, all of this really was. But the Lord brought together again, Ulysses and Dawn and several others with that. And when we had finished First Love, I think we were starting to get like a little bit of the bug. It was like, okay, we have the pieces to do this. We know how to do this. In my mind, it was like, okay, we did that. Let's like really try and make a movie this time. And that was like, just in my mind, kind of a proof of concept. Like, okay, we can write a cohesive script and film a feature-length film, because Behind the Veil, it was close to a movie length. It was an hour, but it wasn't truly a feature film. And so that's when We Are Stronger is the pivotal point of when Reflective Media Productions was born out of that, and just a whole different way of creating the projects began at that point.
If you don't mind, I'll go back.
Yeah, no.
We released First Love, if I'm correct, in 2013, I believe, and that was really before streaming had taken off. So it was just a DVD release. But I'll never forget, we were with somehow I got it with Parables Network, I believe. I don't think it's there now, and I got a message one morning about 6:00 in the morning. I don't know if that was from you, Robin, or somebody had sent me a
I
text
think
that
it was
said,
from Julia, because at that point we were working on We Are Stronger, and so we had met Julia, Justina's.
yes. And she said, get on the TV, and I can't remember the network, but it's going to be the movie of the week.
I know. That's great.
And so I was like, oh my goodness. And all of a sudden we started getting emails from South Africa and different parts of the country. And honestly, the Lord used that, I think, as a confirmation of the direction that we're going. It's almost like he, as he is a lamp into our feet, and a light into our path, that is an idea of a candle that gives enough light to give you the next step. And I feel like God continued to give us the next step.
Yeah.
Not the whole story, but the next step.
I think that's, again, just to reiterate, as we've grown and developed and done bigger projects and all that kind of stuff, it's I think for the three of us especially, I feel like nothing's changed for us. Like it's very much like hopefully we are, by God's grace, better at what we do now and are able to handle a lot bigger projects and all that kind of stuff. But the three of us started out in ministry, and that was always our heart. And for me, I never grew up wanting. That was never a dream. So many people, and I love working with film students and people in the industry and all that kind of stuff. But, so many of them have the story of, I saw Star Wars when I was a kid and I thought, man, I want to make movies and all that kind of stuff. And that was never really my aspiration. I think my biggest strong point is just figuring out how to do stuff. And it's not really ever been like, oh man, I really want to make movies. Now I love it. And I do have a passion for it, but it was never something that I grew up really having a burning desire for. But what I did want to do is I was blessed enough that the Lord really got a hold of me early in life, and I really wanted to go into ministry. I thought about doing youth ministry. I thought about becoming a philosophy teacher at one point. That's actually what I had started going to school for. And that's really what I was working towards. And through working at the church, the Lord was like, nope, you're going to go into this, because I just inadvertently, that's where my skill set was developing was in graphic design, photography, videography. And so that's that's what the church needed. And that was really kind of the furnace that put me in there and was forcing me to do it. Not that I hated it. I enjoyed it, and I've always enjoyed I really started with graphic design was my first thing as a kid, even since I was like 13. I've basically used Photoshop every day of my life since I was 13. So, so that's really where I started in doing early web design and all that kind of stuff. And so photography was my first step into that world. And again, that was really out of necessity. I noticed some churches in the area had really cool pictures of their youth events. I was like, well, I kind of looked up the camera that one of the guys was using. I was like, that's kind of cool. I would love to do that for our ministry. And so that's how I got into photography right there, was just like that. It was like, I saw like, this would be cool for the ministry. How do we do that? And so again, it's just kind of that's the way the Lord designed me, is to figure stuff out. And so, it is kind of a weird place too, because we don't really fit into that traditional mold of kind of the film industry sort of thing. And there's a wonderful Christian film industry, and we have a lot of friends in the industry and we connect, but we're definitely a different sort of ministry in that regard, because it's very much about ministry first and entertainment second. We want to have the highest quality entertainment, but we talk about this all the time too. We want to be strategic in how we push forward the truth and reach people with the hope and healing that's only in Christ. And so we do that through short form content, through interviews, through short films, all the way up to feature films and streaming series. And so all of that is important and cohesive to the mission of the ministry, which is to reach people with Christ. So it's all unified.
Love it.
Makes me think
Well, both.
just think a book title that it's really more a book about counseling and all, but it's instruments in the Redeemer's hands. I don't know if you ever remember reading that book. It's by one of the Trips, Paul, maybe. But I think that's really what all of us have, and that's definitely what Jake has been. He was just a willing instrument in the Redeemer's hand. He was ready to learn whatever he needed to learn to be that conduit for what the Lord is going to do in someone else's life to redeem them. And I just wanted to say, your interest in philosophy and just in thought process, or modes of thinking and things like that, has been very helpful in the writing process, because usually before any project really gets started with a script, truly just writing out the script and all, Jake and I would have long hours and hours long conversations that would just wander all over the place, that parts of that would end up in the story and in the script. So I would say that God doesn't waste anything, and so those
Beautiful.
interests and all, and then and then Carla is able to come and just sort of have a heart for knowing what is going to make an impact on people's hearts. And she's able to stop and say, I'm not sure about that, but what if we do this, and get us going in the directions that God uses. So I just think all three of us, I certainly was never trained to write. I thought it would be cool, but I'd never done it. I was a history teacher is what I was trained to do. And then I was a mom, I was homeschooling my kids whenever all this started. But I liked script and parodies and funny stuff. And that's how this began, was just,
well, that really goes to the modern day reflective media. Really started with, I guess this is kind of the history episode of reflective media.
Yeah. I love it.
But that was the turning point, and really we came into focus on what the Lord had for us, I think, at that point. And that was when I had a very extremely loose idea of what I think would be a compelling storyline, which also, keep in mind, up until this point, Reflective Life had largely exclusively been about women's ministry. And First Love was kind of a step in a broader direction with that a little bit, but yeah, I had seen there are two components that brought the initial idea of We Are Stronger. Was I had seen a little mini 15-minute documentary on how soldiers were being treated after they came back, and how they were really given no hope other than here's an appointment with a psychologist and maybe a prescription and good luck. So, there's a lot of thought around that, a lot of discussion around that, but that's what I saw at the time. And then I also had seen Ulysses had done some different kind of headshots and stuff like that. And I was like, he could pull off a military kind of look pretty good. And so I still remember the night and where I was trying to go to sleep, which is where most of my ideas happen. and I just saw this vision of Ulysses in a wheelchair on a stormy night, which it actually kind of looks different than how it was in the film. But the vision was, to really start off slowly behind him. You see lightning and all that kind of stuff, and it flashes into this flashback of him, trying to get put into a chopper and all this kind of stuff. And that was really just kind of it's like, oh, that's a cool, compelling scene.
Yeah.
That's the storyline. And really, and I remember too vividly talking to Carla about this idea, which is one of the things I love so much about our ministry, is we're so free and open with each other and just able to bounce ideas off. And there's not a lot of, I work in organizations where there's just a lot of machinery that you have to, committee meetings, and you got to get 100 people on board before you can do anything. And with the three of us, it's just like, oh wow, that's a great idea, let's workshop that a little bit. And so I remember talking to Carla. It was on her driveway and down here.
It was exactly.
Her old house.
Was visualizing that moment.
And so really what I had envisioned was it being, We Are Stronger being about the interplay of the spiritual reality that we're in, and spiritual warfare, and how that relates to mental health and all that kind of stuff. That kind of became Breaking Strongholds. The Lord shaped and molded We Are Stronger in ways that we just didn't even imagine yet. And so that was one of the coolest parts of the job, which is probably, I don't think most people would find the most interesting, but I loved that section of just learning and researching. We were working with several different PTSD ministries and sitting in on groups, interviewing people who were in it. And that really developed our process that we still use today, which I love. Again, just let's talk to people. Let's hear their stories. Let's talk to pastors. Let's talk to people who've gone through, this. And so that process really formed how we do things with that. And then, We Are Stronger, that's a whole big, long process of filming. And
that needs to be a podcast on its own.
We could do a whole thing. But what is interesting is after We Are Stronger, that was kind of a turning point as well. And I feel like that was a moment of like, okay, is this what we're doing? I remember Robin and I, we were meeting as We Are Stronger was kind of tapering off with showings and all that kind of stuff. We were kind of talking about the next thing. And I think at that moment, which Robin had been through a lot at that point, and it was kind of a moment of like, it was a decision moment, I think, probably for Robin. I don't know, you can speak better to that, but it was kind of like, am I doing this, or am I going to kind of half do this or whatever? And that was kind of that moment. You want to talk to that, Robin?
Well, We Are Stronger changed me forever, and part of it was the content that we were working with, but part of it was real life was super hard right then. We had family crisis with a teenager, and just mental health stuff that turned into addiction, that turned into just visits to hospitals, rehab center, things that just when I was homeschooling my 3 little kids and we were going to the park and learning to read, it never occurred to me that would be my life. So we were probably in the middle of that when Jake was thinking, oh, well, Carla had gone to, she tries to stay up with the industry and goes to the different conferences like content, and streaming series were the thing. And they were like, this is the thing now, especially for things without a huge Hollywood budget. This is, and Jake liked the idea of being able to tell a longer story. And so I guess I did kind of have a moment there. I remember, saying, I mean, am I I'm the writer, huh? Like I don't know anything about any of this. So kind of like what Jake's saying, we start by listening. I can't write something that I don't know. I know what it's like to be a very anxious parent who's trying to trust the Lord. But some of these, certainly with the experiences with the military things, we just had to listen. So we did learn to listen to people, and then to write their stories. And then we learned to listen to the Lord and let him guide us and everything. But yeah, I don't know if there was consciously at the time a moment of me saying, do I really want to keep doing this? I can tell you that I was not the same person after that point in my life.
Well, I remember you talking about one, you were different just with, I think you had come from a place of, you were writing funny skits and stuff like that originally and all that kind of stuff. And I remember you kind of being like, I think I'm done with that part of my writing.
Because was done. She was shifting, she had to. God was taking the ministry in a different place. It was there's no more retreats and funny skits. He had us doing.
Well, and I remember too, you're kind of toying around with the idea of taking some Grace School theology classes, and
I did take one. I did.
Did you? I didn't know that.
I did. I took my class, made my A, and I never take another class because I was kind of just like, what's next for me? Is this?
Yeah.
And but I'm glad you remember that. I'd forgotten about that, but I remember thinking as I powered through finishing that class, this isn't what I need to be doing. I had thought maybe I'm supposed to be a counselor,
which you are. You don't need, not officially, but you 100% are. The Lord has used you so much to come with people's lives.
Coffee shop counselor is what I would say I end up being in a lot of cases, but I thought maybe I should go ahead and get my degree in that, and so I started off on that, and then I thought, I already have a bunch of schooling from when I was young, and I don't I don't think I need to keep pursuing this because God's got me doing something else, and he's using it. And there's no better feeling than knowing that your work has been used by God to change somebody else's life. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that was happening. And it's like, why would I sit here and, go this other route when just real life is showing me things, and these interviews with people who have lived things, and just this is where God is really using me. And I've never enjoyed any ministry more than what we've done.
That was such a fun, sweet time. It was such a kind of lower pressure time in the ministry, and it was I do remember we were at your old house, Robin, and we were kind of talking about what was next. It was the three of us, and I was like, well, I have two ideas. One is about a plane crash with a father and son, which maybe someday that'll be a different project, but and then the other one was what would later become Breaking Strongholds, and both like, I kind of like that one. And so we just kind of started workshopping that. And probably for, I want to say 4 months or something, Robin and I met weekly. And that was one of the most fun routines that we had. It was just like...
we just talked about everything.
It was just like the most random, and I remember feeling like, man, we got to get it together. Like we got to get something... something to get together. And so
I have to say, I have been inspired through the years by both of you in ways that maybe I've never shared. And maybe I have, I don't know, but just as to reiterate, both of you have inspired me with your heart of investigation.
Hmm.
You want to make it right. You don't want to write something, create something that might be the case.
Mm.
And that has been such an inspiration to me.
Hmm.
And something else, I'll never forget. Robin will say, "I've got to pray and then write." She lets the Lord download to her. After doing all the investigating, after she is in continual communication with the Lord as she's writing, and stuff will come out that you're just like, where did that come from? Just wow. But it could only be from the Lord. So and then that goes to the heart of, we've got a prayer team led by Trenda Lynch, that if we are in any moment of need of prayer over this ministry, it's a constant prayer that they have and that she leads. But we'll say, "Hey, Trenda, we're experiencing some spiritual warfare right now." And that girl is on it. So we've got this prayer, prayer
And
warriors
you can tell she just
over us.
deeply cares about it. Like, it's such
Oh.
her heart is like 100%.
It is her ministry,
Yeah.
and we get the blessing of being able to serve the Lord together. And that's what when I think of what the body of Christ is supposed to do, this is it. We are to serve in unity, just like in Psalm 133 that says, "How blessed it is when the brethren dwell together in unity. It's like oil running down on the beard of Aaron and onto his cloak." And that picture of when a team is united, the Holy Spirit, then everything that's produced out of that unit, that unity of that team, there's an anointing of the Holy Spirit that happens. And I think we've experienced that, and not because of us, but it's all because of him. It's all for his glory, and all of us have that same heart for that. So,
But it began with you, Carla. It began with you. You started this, and you always had that heart. And the first thing you did is gather a prayer team. And so I learned from you.
we learn from each other.
One of the things I have loved, I love both of y'all, and we have walked so long together, and I so highly value long-term relationships, that people I know and I trust, and again, that we share the same heart. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, I could do corporate stuff. We could all be doing other things. But and it's such a rare thing too in the industry we're kind of in, to have, a team of people that you trust, and you just work with them. And and the cool thing for us is that it's all ministry. But one, I will echo what Carla says too, especially with Robin, just that it's all of our heart, but Robin takes it and makes it happen with doing the research and feeling the weight of what we're doing. And that's one of the cool things, the cool feedback we've gotten about We Are Stronger over the years, especially, which is like, we've gotten so many comments of, it's like you recorded my life and you put it up on screen. And those comments are largely because the hard work of Robin. And we all did it together, but Robin was the one that really put in the work, and she so feels that way. And she did that with Breaking Strongholds as well, of, just even going down to how we portrayed Ryan's struggle and stuff like that. And like the details of what shots we would show, and in compliance with different standards and all that kind of stuff. And so none of this is sloppy writing or, just off the cuff stuff. Like, and that's largely in part, all of us contribute. We all bounce ideas off of each other. We all are involved in the creative process hugely, but Robin is the one that is making that happen, and has such a heart for, and feels the weight of the importance of what we're doing with that. But also on Carla, I am just so impressed and have so much respect for Carla. And I think I wrote a long time ago on a birthday thing or whatever, just like, you are somebody who gets out of the boat and you will take the big steps in following Jesus. And you've done that for as long as I've known you, and also have done that with integrity. And I've seen you in situations. I mean, when we first started working together, I didn't know either of y'all very well, and it's been cool to witness your character over 15 years and how you've handled so many different situations. And so I love y'all a lot. And I'm so glad that we get to keep doing this. And
You guys, so fun.
I couldn't be, and we say it all the time, but it truly feels like we're just getting started, even after 15 years. And I'm so excited for this next chapter. I feel we talked about those different pivotal moments of we are stronger, and in the beginning of breaking strongholds and all that. We're very much in one of those moments right now, which is cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Lord has brought just even more clarity over the last year and a half. It has very much been a marathon with finishing up breaking strongholds, and we've had lots of adversity with that. And it's been cool to see the Lord bring into focus, take away some stuff that needed to be taken away, but also bring into focus really what I feel like is next for the ministry. And it's going to be fun getting to walk that road with y'all and see what the Lord does.
I think our next podcast, we should focus on what God's doing in the now with breaking strongholds. Because there is some, I don't think we have enough time to go into it right now, but that would give a little teaser for listening to our next podcast. How about that?
Yeah. We've always talked about, we should record some of these conversations and put them out. And so hopefully this was engaging.
I was talking to a friend, young girl, she's in her 30s. And she was like, have y'all done a podcast? I was like, no. She goes, y'all really need to do a podcast because I would love to listen. I would follow y'all through your journey. And so it just kind of put a spark in my mind of, maybe we should do this. So here we are.
Here we are. Well, I think that's good. We've been going about 50 minutes, but I hope everybody has been engaged with this, and hopefully gives you a little bit of a window into our heart and what the ministry is about. And I think that's a great idea, Carla, for the next, I have a whole list of things I would love to talk about in our next thing. So hopefully this is a good thing.
You got a good one.
Yeah.
So don't miss the next episode.
Stay tuned.
Off the clock, what? We're turning it on, talking about life from dusk till dawn. Faith, fun, and a little deep chat. You'll love every second, and that's a fact.